Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. This is number 83 in our weekly Zoom meetings for learning life skills together. And for this one, we're going to talk about a scientific idea that helps us to understand why in learning life skills together we say, get out and take a walk in nature with your kids. So before we launch into this scientific talk, let's drop into a practice that will sort of help us understand maybe a little more of what we're going to be talking about. So we like to do these little practices to get ourselves settled, get ourselves ready to listen, and sort of clear our minds. And it's something we all need. So if you'd like now, you could close your eyes or you could leave them open. And if you're driving, please just sort of listen to this and see how you can make sense of it. So as you sit here, just bring your mind into your body. Just feel where it is that you're sitting or standing. Feel the places where your body is touching down. Places where you're being held by gravity. Because if you're being held, if you're in a chair, on a couch, lying on a bed, standing up, walking, gravity has hold of you. And gravity is something that allows you to align yourself, to get yourself set up, to really kind of be held. So gravity holds us in the postures that we choose. And we can sort of play with that a little bit and see how we can align ourselves so that we don't have to make a lot of effort, so that we can just more or less come to rest. Let our bodies rest. So maybe you can notice if you need to move a little bit to find a little more rest. So maybe just allowing your body to settle. You might notice that when you're breathing out, as opposed to breathing in, that you are settling a little more. That kind of our muscles relax just a little bit each time we exhale. Maybe following that for a moment. Just noticing if there is a little more settling when you breathe out. There is a possibility for us to rest and to settle our bodies. And so when you're ready, if your eyes have been closed, you could open them and sort of see where you are. You're sitting in the middle of wherever it was you were before. And so I think with that, we're ready to talk about this idea. So really, a lot of things are coming together at this kind of moment of the beginning of September. We've been talking in our weekly meetings about back to school and what that's gonna be like, and maybe now we know a little bit about how it is. And we also have fantastic weather right now. It's sunny and reasonably cool, and our natural surroundings are beautiful. There are flowers still blooming. The plants that give us food are doing that, and we're probably all appreciating that. And the birds are starting to migrate. Maybe you've heard some flying overhead. Maybe you've seen some movements in the sky and in the trees that sort of let us know that nature is on the move. And so, with all of that to see and experience, we can maybe focus on this idea of our attention. So, we need it for school. We have fun with it when we look at the birds flying and the plants blooming and fruiting out. Um, And with all the maybe new people that we're meeting or old acquaintances that we're having. So we're paying attention in kind of an important way. And particularly with that back to school, how do we pay attention? How do we increase our attention span? So we've been reading some poems and things like that from a long time ago. And I thought it would be kind of fun to take a look at something that's new about something that's old. So there was an article just a couple of weeks ago in the New York Times. So, reasonably well known, very old newspaper, sometimes called the paper of record for America. So what shows up in those pages is usually pretty important and usually pretty well thought through and thought about. So there was just a short article on a surprising and easy way to boost your attention span. That's the headline. So maybe that's appealing in this time in September. So a surprising and easy way, and that's appealing to me. I don't know about you. So the next line is being in nature is great for your brain. Experts are trying to figure out why. So, what it talks about are some studies that have been done with taking young adults, college students usually, because they are used in research an awful lot. Um, so, taking college students for a short walk in nature out in an arboretum, a place with lots of trees and plants, and testing them to see how their attention is, to see how strong their attention they're able to pay once they've had this walk. And so they took one group for a walk through the city looking at buildings and sidewalk and other people. And the other group walked through this beautiful arboretum space. The students who walked through the arboretum space had scores 20% higher on attention tasks than the students who walked through the urban space. So, this idea that we need to get out and be in nature essentially to refresh our possibility for attention, to allow ourselves to focus better. So this is actually a test of a theory that was developed a long time ago, like in the 1980s, I believe it was, um, by two professors at the University of Michigan, Rachel and Stephen Kaplan, so a couple, worked out this idea of attention restoration theory. And what they thought was happening, and what people have been proving ever since, is that to pay attention takes a lot of effort in the area of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's in charge of executive function, in charge of where our eyes are going to go, where our listening is going to focus, all of those kinds of things, and the sustaining of our attention, the keeping that attention going. Exactly what our kids need in the classroom in school. But the Kaplans say not all the time. And so that tires us out, that kind of use of our prefrontal cortex, of our executive function, is effortful. It drains us. And so, how do we help the brain come back from that and be ready to do more? And so they say nature is the place to go to restore our attention. And here's what happens. So when we go out in nature and we look at trees, or maybe we see them moving in the breeze and we just stand and watch the leaves flutter or the branches move, or we stand by a creek, of which there are many in Chester County, and watch the water flowing. So watching the ripples, actually hearing the sounds of the wind with the trees and the ripples with the water. All of this helps our brain to restore itself because we get fascinated by those things, but not in a way that takes up all that energy, like being fascinated with the reading that you're doing, the essay that you're writing, the lecture that you're listening to, the textbook that you're reading. All of that is really effortful and maybe fascinating in its own way. And I hope for the sake of our kids that it's often fascinating. And nature fascinates us in a softer way, in a way that lets our brain settle and relax, just like we did with our bodies a couple of minutes ago. So we stopped, we paused, we felt our bodies, we settled in. Essentially, what we're doing when we're in nature and just taking it in is that for our mind, letting it settle, saying you don't have to have effort, but you can be grounded, just like we're grounded in gravity. We're grounded in nature. All of our senses, our hearing, our sight, the feeling on our skin, the feeling up through our feet, all of that is helping to restore us. And we don't have to do that for very long. There are a number of newer studies looking at this that said, okay, well, what happens when we go for a walk in nature? So another study came out very recently, and so this was in the scientific literature, which the New York Times looks at and then turns it into an article that non-scientists want to read. So the scientific paper says that a brief nature walk, a brief guided walk in nature, which is exactly what we would be doing if we took our kids out for 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the park or uh, down by the creek, wherever we happen to be able to be. And so they found that it reduces stress, improves resilience, improves our attention, and improves our sleep quality, which is another thing that we really want to be thinking about with ourselves, of course, and our kids. When we're sleeping, are we sleeping well? Are we restoring ourselves? So the test was a 30-minute walk in the woods. And it achieved all of those things. So all of those things improved. And stress or mental distress, as they say in the paper, went down. So now we've been asking since we started this program for people to stop, go out for a walk, and go out, on kind of a regular basis. Just go out, experience nature, however you want to do that. So it may be places that have sidewalks, it may be places that are way off the beaten path. It may be going to the beach. So when we stand or sit and look out at the ocean or at a lake, we're getting this soft fascination, and it is restoring our capacity for attention, which we all want and need for our jobs and for our kids in school. So, how do we pull this off? So, here's a thought. We can feel when we're getting tired of using that tight focus, of using that effort in our prefrontal cortex, using that executive function area to really concentrate. We can feel when we're becoming tired, and it's usually after less than an hour. So, what if the last 10 minutes of every hour we stepped outside? Now, we might not have trees to watch. There might not be a creek. It would be really lucky if we had that. Wish I did. But we do have the sky. And so to go out, maybe sit down, maybe lie down, maybe just stand for a little while and watch what's happening in the sky. So we live in Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of gray skies. But as you start to look, you start to see movements of the different layers of them. There's something there that's happening. And there's something there that opens up for us that soft fascination. Days like we've been having the last few weeks with puffy cloud forms, white, puffy clouds drifting in the sky. This is restorative. This is fascinating in that soft way. And we can go back to what we were doing. And so I'm on a college campus, and I encourage my students to do this. You can encourage your kids to do this when they're at home and doing that kind of focused work. It's also interesting to note, and I'm sort of going to wrap up with this idea, is that when we're looking at those things, we're not looking at screens, which actually take up that other kind of space and wear us out. So when we're looking at our screens for a break, we're not getting a break. We need to move into nature and let it restore us so that we can come back. Not a big deal to go outside and look at the sky. Not a big deal to go see the flowers in the couple of gardens that we might walk by for 10 minutes, or the flowers in the flower boxes, or the odd tree, the odd cloud. You know, this is really all that we need to get ourselves back. So, so I want to encourage you to do that hourly. So that idea of how regular can we be with getting ourselves rested in a way that really rests us. Soft fascination, nature, the sky, the water, the trees. That's our watchword, is hourly. Doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, but it's something to keep us practicing. And as we always say in learning life skills together, practicing the skills that help us is what makes them work. We can know all about them. Practicing, that's what matters.